Most people actually, their views, their opinions, the way they look at the world, it's not actually their own. It's just what was instilled in them.
Yeah.
And to me, until you challenge categorically pretty much everything you believe, it's not really your opinion yet until you challenge it and really try to do your own due diligence and think for yourself. And I think that's the biggest problem in the world today is people don't think for themselves. And as soon as they do, they learn that they can be a lot more successful than they are. But unfortunately, society is systematically designed to punish and restrict people from thinking independently. And so you won't find anything about that in school or in many books.
Yeah, of course not. Of course not. Why do you think do you think that it's a lack of desire to think that way, or do you think that it is related to a internal fear of perhaps maybe challenging a belief that you've structured your life around and finding that that belief may actually not be totally true and you might need to change your entire value structure? Do you think it's like totally related to fear and internal fear? Do you think that it's just lack of awareness?
Well, I mean, it's not lack of awareness, it's blatant manipulation. I'll give you an example. Let's say you grow up and your parents say, stay out of debt. Well, they say that because they heard it on the radio, because they were systematically programmed and their parents to tell you to stay out of debt. Any successful entrepreneur and investor knows that that's a complete lie, that debt, when leveraged properly, can be a beautiful thing. I'll give you a perfect example. Recently bought a $2 million yacht cash, got a recapture loan on it. I had to buy it cash to get certain things to happen to have a tax deduction. I charter it, I do business events on it, that produces income. Most of the yacht was paid for in the tax deduction. So either was going to go to the IRS or the boat. I'll take the boat. But here's the thing: there's about $30,000 a month in in expenses. Well, 20 to 30. 30 is the high end. That's crew, that's fuel, that's maintenance. So you say, okay, Dan, even if you're all broken even, you still have 20 to $30,000 a month in expenses for that yacht. Sure, I do, but I get most of that money I paid for the yacht back in a recapture loan. I take that money, I put it into an investment. Like right now, I have a 6 month investment with a food service company that has government contracts, so it's super locked down. It's 16% paid back in 6 months. That pays for like 8 months of those expenses. So like, but that's debt. I let you
Right.
leverage debt, and I'm actually leveraging my debt, and somebody else is leveraging their debt against mine. And so when you actually educate yourself and know how to use debt, you'd be surprised all the things that you can get essentially free. But if you just grow up at, well, my dad told me that stay out of debt, like you're never gonna understand those things, and you're never gonna be able to live life to the fullest. Um, and there's so many things you can do for your family. Like people don't even realize things like becoming your own bank or leveraging a home equity line of credit, or like they don't know how these things work because they never bothered to actually sit down and educate themselves on how to leverage the power of money. And so and so they don't. And the only reason they don't sit down and look into it is because their parents or their friends or their pastor or their youth leader or somebody said, you know, somebody who's basically broke or
Yeah.
has no financial acumen whatsoever said stay out of debt. And that's one of 1,000 misconceptions about life that is programmed into us. And if you don't think that's on purpose by people that benefit from those beliefs being circulated, well, then I have air to sell you. But for some of us, we break free of that construct and learn, how to think for ourselves, and that's what I'm a big proponent of.
Right, and especially if you're somebody that wants more out of life than what is average or mediocre or what is typical, because I find that basically all of the schooling systems, culture as a whole, really pushes you to just be that, just another, just another cog in the machine. You know
Of
what I mean? It just
course, if our
pushes you to,
schooling yeah,
yeah,
if our schooling system pushed you to be more than average, our economy would fall apart. So, you know what I mean? Like, think if you think about it, if
yeah,
everybody excelled, the
right.
economy would crash.
Right,
So,
right. And it's, more difficult to control a crowd of free thinkers than it is to control a crowd of people who are told exactly what to think. So,
well, that's the other thing is throughout history, it's been proven that governments and societies do not like, they punish and they restrict free thinkers.
yeah.
The idea that we've stopped doing that in the last 100 years, in 2,000 years of history, is a bit absurd. So, you know,
Yeah, especially there's some very culturally relevant things that I don't want to get into that would prove that significantly. So no, totally on the same page, man. And just to get kind of go on that good debt, bad debt thing too, before we move on, huge proponent of that myself. And I got a buddy that owns a, a funding company, does like gap funding and stuff. And when I first launched my podcast, I basically was like, well, I need to learn about this new industry. And so investing in myself became top priority. So I pulled out 0% interest credit card. And that's what I put basically, coaching programs, events, masterminds, flew all over the country, met people.
you
That's
get
how
points
like
on that too, right?
that's exactly right. And you get a lot of
Yeah.
points on that. You know what I mean? So like now all of a sudden, like a travel starts to be free and those things that, so like, and that was a 0% credit card. And I paid it off with the money from my new podcast, you know what I mean, before the 0% interest period stopped. So it's free debt that I didn't have to pay anything for, that I just got to carry for a while until I generated the income. Now the dumb
Mhm.
thing would be to go, justify buying two brand new computers for your studio because you have a credit card that, you can put debt onto, right? Like there's definitely a line that you want to draw and make sure that
Yeah.
you're actually using it for real investments. But I did the same thing with my software company. When I started my software company, I knew we were going to be investing, six figures into development, and I didn't want to basically spend the actual liquid cash in my account to do that. So we got pulled out. I went to my buddy Bill again, and pulled out a few different credit cards, all 0% interest in the name of my business, so it doesn't go against my personal debt. It only lists as the LLC debt, which was a new LLC that we opened for the ability to open those credit lines. And then we used all of those at 0% interest without having to pay any points, without having to give up any equity, without having to take on any investment capital. And we were able to fill that up. So I'm totally with you, man. Like the good debt, bad debt conversation is one of those things that like
That's
people
one of many
that you can't,
conversations.
what's that?
That's one of many conversations that I
Yeah.
think if you took a group of high level entrepreneurs and you sat them on one side of the room, and you took a group of college professors and you sat them on the other side of the room, you
Right.
wouldn't really have too many agreements in that room.